Okay, so in that time, I got an eraser, and since I don't have a lot of room, I'm gonna go ahead and erase this. Okay, so so let's erase it. Man, this is the most unstable thing I've ever. All right. Okay, so now let's go on to Carolyn, this is really not the best. Okay, where is my marker? It's over here. All right, so we've done premise, okay? So pre-production is your outline. And that is, for me, when I'm creating a picture book, but kind of, even if I'm creating, like I'm working on a novel and it's a very ambitious novel, so it's pretty long, and it's a blast, but it's first of all very research heavy, because it takes place in 1521 and 1535. This is research, and you know, working out your characters, working out the storyline basically. And since I write everything down, I have a huge storyline. I also, since I'm working on a book that's historical fiction, and it's very complicated. I mean, I don't want the writing to be, you know, daunting, so I don't want it to be, the reading of it to be daunting, but everything has to be in the right place. So I also use technology here. First of all, I have an Apple Watch, right? And I have it set up so that if I have an idea, I can record it, and I have it set up to translate with a transcriber and go immediately to Word documents, right? And then I go back in and edit them before I put them into my my original manuscript, which and for that I use Scrivener. Okay, so research, storyline, but here for illustrators, it is the storyboard, and we know how that is the 32 pages. Actually, this is incorrect. It's really 16 pages cut in half, and the first one is the title page, so then it's like this. And there's plenty of documentation out there to give you this format, okay? And I'm not going to go too far into that, except that I have found over the years that the storyboard is best when it's kept very succinct and very simple. So so I had the title page, and then I had the fish in the bowl on my dedication page, reading a book right here, and then the dedication. And on the very first page, I have, you know, two fish bowls divided by a wall of books, and this fish cannot see this fish, right? And so that's what I'm talking about as far as first getting the idea down. And I still do that. I still do that even with the novel. I was doing that, I think, if I can, I kind of tried to mark some stuff yesterday. See, so here, and this is a piece I'm not going to use, but I was trying to set the stage, and so right away I use this as a tool, my storyboarding, right? And because here's the thing, I don't think this is necessarily true for setting up a book, but generally the main story has got to be action, right? And we've all heard people talk about a picture book where two people are just talking to each other, and how boring that is visually, right? And when your picture book is all about the page turn, and I've got to say a novel as well, something has to be happening. So I'm going to go ahead. I always end with this, or I've been trying to lately. I only really did it once. But my favorite line is this. Einstein said, "Nothing happens until something moves." And so That's very true with story. It is certainly true in a picture book. And in a way, it's kind of like even, you know, on a higher level true, because a page turn is movement, right? But it is also true in the big picture of creating something. I mean, even though you have this idea and it may sound great in your head, until you actually do something that is physical, until something moves, nothing is occurring. And this is really the best part. I was talking yesterday for a moment about the dummy. Now, in order to get published, I was talking to my agent, and she said this was a really good chance to talk to people about the most important thing in getting published, and that is, well, the biggest reason that people don't get published is because they submit something before it is ready. They submit a manuscript before it is absolutely to the point where they can no longer, you know, make it better without, you know, outside help. And the same is true for an author illustrator doing a book. I was obsessed with, I'm obsessed with all book dummies, right? Since I was in second grade and did this one in one day. And I know I did it in one day because some kid asked me a few months ago, they said, well, how long did it take you to do that book? And I thought he was talking about watercolor fish. And I said, well, the whole book took 10 years, but the dummy took about 6 months. And he said, no, the trip through space air that you wrote in second grade, because by far this is my most popular book when I do school visits. However, and this is just as much a book as anything else. It's got a hard front cover, back cover, spine. You open it up and it's got the end pages. It's got a title page, illustrations, the story, and actually this was what I used as my model for this book. I also was fortunate enough to talk to Selena Yoon a lot on the web at night and send some stuff back and forth. Oh my God. If you want to, the master of book dummies is Selena Yoon. Oh my goodness. Oh, her stuff. She'd go like this. She'd go, well, wait, let me go take a picture of my book dummies. I have them set up on a table, some of them. And she would take a picture and send it. And I'd be like, oh my, what? The level, the finishing was, oh my God, she's a genius, right? Okay, so this is my book dummy. And I got to say this. When you have a property and it's really good, people will come to you. That's what happened to me with The Amazing Watercolor Fish. I'd only finished it, like, you know, I tell people a couple of days, but the truth is I printed it out one morning, and by that afternoon, I was at a conference, and by that afternoon somebody already had made an offer on it. So what I'm trying to say is people want to see something tangible, something that they can viscerally react to. And I know people say, well, PDFs and this, and you know, you can listen to them because a lot of these people know what they're talking about. But for me and for Selena, we believe that you really have to have something that people can read and hold in their hands, the sacred phicality of a book. Okay, so this book, I did one basic color illustration, trying to get across what I felt captured the essence of the book, the emotion of the book, and then the rest of it is in black and white pencil. And I show this to kids all the time, and they're very intrigued by this. And I was noticing yesterday when I was reading the final version, how similar, I mean, gee whiz, if you go, I can't even believe how close this is to, wow, I mean, look at that. Now, agreed, this is part of the concept of the book is that it goes from black and white to you know, more saturated color as the book progresses. But again, you'll see that the basic design is there, right? I mean, let's see what this one looks like. Wow, this is a little bit different, right? So, so there you go. Okay, so we're still talking about pre-production. This also, while I was doing this, I was also really zooming in on the text. I would let it kind of marinate for a while, and then I'd go back to it, and I'd read it aloud and read it aloud and read it aloud. Which brings me to two other things. One, a picture book is meant to be read aloud. You know, it's a page turning thing. It's about the sound, and so for picture books, you really need to always be reading it aloud, seeing how it plays, right? And I encourage everybody who has a picture book and does school visits to memorize their book, because if you're still trying to read it, that means that maybe the words aren't exactly placed the way they need to be, right? And I try to think of words, even text on a page, as real estate. You know, it's all this, literally a piece of this bigger picture, and the spot where it's located, and even how it's the spot where it's located in the way it sounds. Those are all crucial to the overall book. I mean, it's a work of art, right? So, and I think the biggest thing to remember about any work of art is that that the big picture, and another P, the big picture is really, divided into all these micro versions of the big picture, right? I mean, everything needs to be feeding into that central idea. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about this is because it keeps you from drifting, right? And it also keeps you from thinking about this. When I first started working in composing, I just let my emotions just carry me, and I would be like, oh, I absolutely love this bass line, and I love this melody. And there's a lot to be said for doing things without thinking, with just having that just knowing in your skin and in your bones and in your blood how things are supposed to work or what you're trying to express. However, books and albums and novels, they take a long time, and it's very easy to get distracted with great ideas even. So I kind of, even when I was working in music, I really tried to stick to this and try to keep in mind what my final goal was. Now that's a tricky one, because outwardly your final goal is the finished book, right? The finished album, the finished painting. But the real goal for people that create, I think, is this. It's the process, right? It's that interaction you have with this that nobody else can see. I'm getting goosebumps. That interaction you have with this process that no one else can possibly have. And it carries, it's magical. So that what you want is that when somebody else sees this, reads your book, sees your painting, hears your song, they have their own relationship with it that's magical, that's beyond anything that you could possibly anticipate or should, right? You're putting something out into the world. And I think there is this magic, this divine implication that this stuff needs to be done. I think if there's something that I don't, it's not a technical thing, but I do want to at least acknowledge, it's that the universe wants you to create these works, right? You have to create the book that you cannot live if you haven't, without creating, right? And I know that's where a lot of you are at, right? And I want this to be kind of a talk between us, like a conversation, so that you know that those things that you're thinking, because I'm sure a lot of you think along these lines also, right? You know that you have friends, you have other people that love this thing that we do more than anything, except for, like my husband and my family. This is why I wake up. This is why I've always woken up in the morning. And this is what I dream about when I go to sleep, right? So I want to get to the next thing, without, you know, going off on a tangent too much, see the importance of a vision board. So let me just go into that real quickly. Storyboard is a vision board, right? But if you're trying to get published, David Diaz told me a long time ago that he had a board on the wall and he wrote down all of the clients, right, that he was going to send stuff to, and I did the exact same thing, and I could not believe the results. I mean, just putting something up on the wall and having it there all the time, it just makes such a big difference. And it also obviously not only keeps you from drifting away, but it enables you to see stuff from a different perspective and really zoom in on things that are not vital to your story, right? Or things that might be extraneous. I mean, yeah, it's important to know it, but do you really want to spend 2 or 3 scenes on explaining this particular thing? All right. So let's move on to production and execution. I want to say something though. Like I said, this is your book. And that's why I want to talk about kind of 2 stages in being published. When I first got published, I guess it was back in 2009, right? I got the letters, the emails, and I literally got the emails for 2 books within an hour and a half of each other. And I have that in my journal. One was Daughters of Two Nations with Mountain Press, and one was Sing Froggy Sing with Pinata Books. And I remember just like, I was in the hall right there and I just kind of stood and I was like frozen. I didn't know what to do next, right? It was weird, right? I was just like, I think in shock. Because, you know, you want to be published so badly, and then you get this contract and you're like, wow. I mean, I had only thought to the point of getting a contract. And then, of course, I spent a lot of time in this area, which is actually rendering, right? And I actually have here is, as far as I'm concerned, the first half of production, which is actually doing the paintings, and I can show you some of those in a minute. But you know, I have my dummy, which is very different from the first dummy. That was my Apple Watch. Okay, you know, that probably means that we need to pause it, and I don't know how to quite do that. So let's see if we go here, and I'm going to pause it right now.